Let me make sure I catch that. Yeah. All right. Hey, we got it, I think. Oh, nice. Very nice. uh,
I'm 5 years
all
old.
right.
Yeah.
You know, we cater to all ages with Tea and Tech. Um, so I think we'll give it a few more minutes, Jessica, to see if anyone else joins,
Come
and
here
then
real
you could
quick.
do a little introduction. Hey, Jason, what was
Okay.
that? Okay.
I do see a face I haven't seen in a while, Brad. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm in Detroit
Different
now.
hair.
I know, right? I died on Tuesday.
Fun.
Yeah.
I guess now is the time to experiment because if it goes bad, you just turn off your camera.
Right.
Exactly. Like Ford doesn't require us to have cameras on, and we're remote till June. So I'm like, hey, who really cares what happens? Not
Right.
me.
Got the old Corona beard or whatever, COVID beard. Kind of the same thing.
And the Corona means crown. You could get a
Ooh, yeah.
my Corona
And it-
Corona.
David Morgan was rocking this really impressive beard for a long time. It was pure white. It was enormous. He shaved it all off recently, but I was I had a little beard envy going on.
Oh, yeah.
Me too. Definite beard envy.
Yeah.
So I'm having a problem right now because, okay, I was told that it looks Confederate. Right?
Are you? Is there like a part? Like, is it almost thinking like Colonel Sanders kind of thing?
It's a little bit of Colonel Sanders.
Is that where they're saying? I don't know.
Let's put a nice spin on it and say, yeah, I kind of look like Colonel Sanders now. Yeah, I think this has to. I mean, either this needs to grow out or this needs to trim, one or the other, right? Because otherwise, I'm either Colonel Sanders or I can dye it and be Vincent Price. Oh, 1970s
Or you could just
actor.
make it, you could make it all white and be Robert E. Lee.
And then we're back to Confederate.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, and then somebody's gonna knock me down.
Or you could dye it a completely different color.
That could be. Then it would be like nobody's
Right?
going to accuse you of being Confederate at that point. If you dyed hair does not match Confederate.
I want to get whatever dye Brad is using. That is dye, right?
Yes, and it's also professional grade. Like I paid a very pretty penny for this.
Oh, excellent.
You paid
Yeah.
Classy with a capital K. Yeah.
Brad, where'd you go?
So there was this salon near me in Ann Arbor.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a bit of a drive for all of you guys. So if you want to make the drive, it's only 5 hours. So
If it's that's the salon is that good.
yeah.
All right, so we're at 4:06 right now. I think it's a good time to kind of kick things off. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, some of the things you've done in your career, and we can kind of just run from there.
Okay, sounds good. So I have been doing this for a really long time. And you can tell me I look young and I'll be really cool with that. But I started in, I think, 1996 or 97. And I worked for a medical device company that was FDA regulated. And I've done all sorts of different things. I worked on the company that originally started predictive text typing on your phone. It was called T9 at the time. It was bought by AOL. And
I remember something about
there's-
like a T9 keyboard, right?
Yes, yeah. Where we had, we developed a dictionary and, like that was the beginning of what we do today when we are typing on our cell phones. So let's see, somebody put, oh, I was just a child. Yeah. Yeah, I was a prodigy. Um, so, but yeah, I got into the computing industry because I I graduated with a comparative religion degree, which was really useful, and so I went back to school and did night courses at University of Washington Extension Program, and then one of my instructors hired me, and so that's sort of how I got into the profession and doing mostly SDET type work, and I found that I really love databases, and I still love databases and data, like relational databases just make me happy with the world. And I've done all sorts of other random things. Like right now, I'm primarily doing tech writing in my role, but it also, I'm at Kroger. It involves a little bit of evangelism. I was a product manager in my last full-time role. I've done some user experience strategy, done program management, and as you can tell, I get bored easily and I like new challenges. So that's been one of the awesome things about the tech industry, is that I can continue to do new things and continue to make a pretty good salary without going into management. I was a manager in one of my roles, and it was really awesome to be able to mentor other folks, but the other things that went along with it, I didn't like that much. And it's possible to mentor and help folks out without being a manager. So that's kind of the route that I've continued to choose after that experience. Was I want to be an individual contributor and lead by influence, as opposed to sort of management hierarchy. So yeah, and one of my interesting roles was at Linden Lab in San Francisco. They are the company that does Second Life, which you may have heard of, and it may involve furries, but that is not all that Second Life is. It was, I think, the first online virtual world, and there's a lot of interesting things that go on in world. From like the military has used it for PTSD recovery. There's like online support groups. There's just these groups of people who meet up who like really are into 1920s Berlin, and they all hang out together in 1920s Berlin, and they know a lot about Berlin and in that time period. And I had, when you go to work there, you get a Linden name. And so everybody calls you that, and it's unique in the company. So even though there was another Jessica Johnson who was also a product manager at one point, we did have different names that people called us.
So can you tell us your Linden name, or is that super secret?
It's not super secret. I was Brooke Linden because I moved to San Francisco from Brooklyn, and I was like, what should my name be? And my boss to be said, well, you're in Brooklyn, what about Brooke Linden? And I said, sure, I can answer to Brooke. It's not too offensive. But a lot of people had, like, the other Jessica Johnson was Trilobite Linden, and one of my coworkers, he didn't really understand that he was going to be called by his name, and he said, Widely. So his name was Widely Linden. And we're like, what does that even mean? But yeah. So
Widely Linden. I don't even know what to think of that.
Yeah, I don't either. He had a hard time explaining it as well.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I was like, how does this work?
So basically, how this works is if somebody wants to talk about something, they just talk, or they ask a question of either the featured guest or the entire group. Typically, the group will kind of jump in and continue talking about it, ask further questions. I had a couple questions from your initial introduction, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So the first one that came to mind was, what do you talked about how you love relational databases, and I'm curious what you love about relational databases. I feel like Sarah Dutkovich should be on because she kind of loves databases as well, and I think that you would be kindred spirits.
So I like patterns, and I like seeing how things fit together, and being able to like identify patterns in data and organize data well. It makes me really happy. I don't know what else to say. Like SQL is like the most amazing language in my mind. And I mean, I haven't used a ton of modern languages. I mean, I did some R classes and like dabbled in Python, and can do the necessary things with CSS when I need to. But so early on I was a C++ and Perl programmer. Object-oriented Perl. Whoa, go
Yeah.
object-oriented Perl.
I've heard that can be I've never programmed in Perl, but I've heard that it can be quite interesting. And I think that one of the ways I heard it described was write only, kind of like regexes. I know that Perl loves regexes. Is that
That's
Oh,
right?
only
yeah.
if you do it wrong.
I like actually knew how to do regex at one point.
I love regex. I that's one of the first things I learned
Yeah.
about general purpose programming, and I thought it was so cool. And I love like making them, cool with like named capturing groups. It's just so much better than like non-named capturing groups. Sorry, that was down the rabbit hole.
You're getting way into the regex stuff that I just barely remember.
Fair enough.
So I have a question. I'm curious because I have a religion theology background as well, like how you made the jump from that as like I think an undergrad degree to like a technology life.
So I've always been pretty strong in math and science, but also in sort of the arts like side of things. And I took basic my senior year of high school, which again is aging me, and then Pascal my senior year of college, and I really liked them both, but somehow it never really connected that I could do something with them, if that makes any sense. I actually was originally going to be a chemistry major when I started college, but then I decided that was actually boring and a lot of memorization when I got to organic chem, and I wanted something where I could be a lot more creative in my career. But I grew up in a religion that helped me learn about world religions, and so I was like fascinated by just different religions and how they interact with society. I almost went to grad school actually for religion, and it didn't happen, and that was sort of when my path diverged and set me on being a nanny for a couple of years with that religion degree, and realizing that I wanted a real job, and talking to my uncle who had a PhD in neurophysiology, where he had done all of it using programming. And so he helped me like work through what might make sense and what a good program to be, to go to would be. And so, that's kind of how I did that. I nannied and I went to night school. And then just really have enjoyed my career. I have taken a couple of sabbaticals between jobs, just to kind of shake things up a little bit. Yeah, it's. I don't know if any of you have ever heard Wendy Lee speak. She talks a lot about North Star. She was the CEO at Centrifuge, and like one of my North Stars is freedom. And so like, I have really enjoyed having the freedom to move around and take time off. And, you know, of course it also means that I am not, you know, I do not have children and, you know, some of the other things that to me don't mean freedom. I think to other people they can, but anyway, that was sort of a long winding
No, that's
answer.
good. Super interesting.
Yeah, it's
I'm not
always
sure. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's always nice to meet other people who have like a sort of humanities background. You know, I like some of the best engineers that I've worked with don't have an engineering degree. Especially when I was at Microsoft, because Microsoft, like, I think they were one of the pioneers in hiring people who didn't have a degree and, you know, seeing the value of critical thinking as the skill set that makes a good engineer as opposed to checking the right boxes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I allowed to ask people questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Well,
This
so
is just
I'm
totally just a chat. So
yeah, I'm sort of wondering, like, you know, so you said you had a background in theology or religion, Andy.
Yes. So yeah.
Are you
so
willing
I,
to share some about that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I have my undergrad degree was in biblical text, if I remember right. And
I wish I'd known you, although we probably are different ages, because I got the only D I have ever gotten in my Christian like text class because I had never read the Bible
okay.
when I was in college.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. So biblical text, and then as I progressed in that degree, I spent like most dedicated students a lot of time in the library, and really like grew to love libraries. And so one day I went to one of my professors and I was like, I like libraries, but I also like this biblical text thing. Like, how do I merge them, right? And so I had some really well-connected professors, and they're like, you should be a theological librarian. And I was like, that sounds amazing. So I actually went on to get a Master of Theological Studies from a school in New Jersey. And then I got my library science degree from the University of Illinois. But I had always kind of done this technology stuff. Like I built computers and worked in a computer shop, and I worked for Hewlett Packard for a summer job, building workstations in one of their joint facilities with Foxconn. So I sort of always had this technology background. And in the library world, that's not a super common thing to have, a library degree and like a strong technology background, I guess. I wouldn't even call it a strong technology background. But so then like libraries were like, come work for us because we want you to do technology stuff. So that's when I started sort of drifting into technology more than theology, but still connected with libraries. And then the closest I got to being an actual theological librarian was a technology librarian at a theological seminary in Pittsburgh, which kind of merged all of this stuff. And then I went to work for our library software, like our library catalog software vendor. And then that's when I went into like the software vendor world. So that's a short background on me.
And are you the Andy at Postman that I have traded emails with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very
That's
cool.
me.
he specifically requested to get on the list because you were going to be here today, Jessica.
Oh, really?
It's
true. That's awesome.
Yes.
That's true. So I'll stop talking about myself because this is your show.
Andy, but you know.
What did you say?
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
it's fun. It's fun to know a little bit more about the people that, you know, we're working with. Because, you know, like we've definitely had a really great experience with Postman. So
cool.
I want to respect Nick's question in the chat before it gets lost. So, Jessica, what's your preferred RDBMS?
So I don't know that I have a preferred one. I mean, I started with Oracle, like super old school, like everything was on the command line. And I actually tested SQL Server at Microsoft. And so I really I definitely like SQL Server, and then I use MySQL at my last, when I was in San Francisco. So I don't know. I haven't ever thought about them in comparison to each other. I mean, I definitely say, it probably between MySQL and SQL Server at this point, just because Oracle just, it's I assume it's as crazy complicated as it used to be. So, which was honestly, it forced me to learn a lot about databases as a first RDBMS. But yeah, and I'm not again, I have not done SQL in maybe 3 or 4 years, which is really sad. So I might need to find an opportunity to put my SQL chops to work. Are you thinking of things, Michael?
No, I oh, don't let your boss hear it.
Well, my boss is not here.
Jessica's gonna start making me use Access databases or something for whatever.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, Access is horrible.
Yeah.
I've had to save some people from Access.
Jason, thanks for joining.
So.
Access used to be reasonable for really small apps when when there was no cheap version of SQL Server and the database didn't go anywhere. Maybe it may be Access, but yeah, not now. No.
Yeah.
No, there's no use case for Access anymore.
UC makes you do Access. I'm not surprised educational institutions probably have databases that have been living for a ridiculous amount of time, and it's surprising that they actually still work in Access. But
I worked at a retail store, and the point of sale backend and receiving and all of that ran off an Access database, which was just mind blowing to me. And we had problems, serious problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was thinking back, I'm oh my God, oh no, just, yeah, move on. Wipe that from my mind. So go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so I do recognize some faces here, but are a lot of the people here, Michael said that a lot of people some are trying to break into the computing industry and use this as a networking opportunity. I mean, what are the things that you all are doing or interested in hearing about? I mean, because I had a little bit of a non-traditional path breaking into the industry. Obviously, it was a while ago and not in Cincinnati, but
Hi, Jessica. How you doing? My name's Randy,
Good.
by the way. Nice to meet
Hi.
you. And hello, everyone. I've missed everyone's face for a couple of weeks. Nice to see you.
Welcome back, Randy.
Thank you. I've had a crazy bout of COVID. It's been a crazy 2 weeks, and now I'm feeling better, and I'm so happy to be back.
Wow.
No
Glad you're
way.
feeling better. That's scary.
Oh, yeah. It was. Happy to be not the worst case scenario. I'm looking over, Jessica, I'm just kind of looking over your spec sheet, and it looks like you've done just a little bit of everything. And I think that is awesome. And I guess this might just be a general question, but I feel like the more fields you learn about, the more you see the bigger picture of things. And do you feel that working with all these different perspectives, you have any fun insight that you might say only someone with so many perspectives might see? I know it's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, one of the things that it's helped me with a lot is figuring out how to work with different personality types. Because I mean, I having been in sort of the product management side, there's a lot of rah, 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 and, on the engineering side, there can be a lot of, well, don't you understand what I'm talking about? can't you read my mind? You know, and I like, and to be fair, I have adopted those characteristics when I have been in those roles. So that I'm not like dissing anybody. But just sort of, you know, being able to figure out where somebody's coming from and kind of like how to get people communicating and working together. I mean, honestly, that's one of the skills that I think having such diverse experience has really helped me in my current role, because I do a lot of facilitation of conversations and, you know, trying to get people to make decisions so I can communicate them can sometimes be challenging. I've been working with a lot of architects recently, and if any of you have worked with architects, they like to really explore all of the possible solutions and understand hypotheticals, and, you know, which is fantastic, and it's, you know, part of the role, but sometimes you just need to get things done. And so, you know, so having sort of a like ability to understand technically, you know, understand sort of the personality types involved, you know, but also like be able to just get things done has definitely been helpful. I mean, and I think also that sort of the broad background has just made it easier for me to slide into different roles. I do have to be careful because I sometimes want to slide into other people's roles, and people sometimes don't like that. You know, depending on how you do it. So I like, you know, I definitely try to be cognizant of that when I provide feedback to folks.
Love it. That's fantastic.
We've got a tiny pause here. I just want to call out before I forget. I'm not planning on having a Tea and Tech next week. I have a meeting that conflicts, but I am then the week after. Izzy is going to be our featured guest, so looking forward to that.
Yes, and Izzy and I work together, which is awesome. So definitely, I'm looking forward to hearing some things that I don't know about you.
Yeah. I do want to say, like, with working with Jessica, what she was saying about like understanding how different personalities like work together. Jessica's one of like the best people I've ever met at like being able to direct conversations and meetings, especially when they start going off the rails. And I really appreciate that about being in meetings with Jessica.
Thank you. That's nice to hear.
Aw.
Yeah.
Jessica, just kind of continuing on that thread that Izzy just brought up about, you know, directing conversations. Is that something you ever like tried to learn, or you know, or it was just kind of a skill you've always had? How does that grow or develop for you?
So, I mean, there are some things that I've done to try and grow it a little bit. Like I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown, and, you know, she talks a lot about communication and how to, you know, make people feel comfortable and heard, and, you know, and so like that has definitely helped me. But I think a lot of it is organic, just from all the experiences I've been in, because trust me, there are times where I have done a very poor job of communicating. And, you know, like I in one of my roles, I somehow ended up being the person that was blamed for providing feedback that I was definitely a part of. And I managed to not make the situation any better with a particular developer who was very upset about it. And he was so rude to me for so long. And I just had to just deal with it. and his manager worked with him too, but like sort of living through the pain of what happens when, like, because one of the things about engineers that can be great is, like the bit switch, right? Like sometimes you flip that switch to the wrong position with an engineer, it takes like a year or more to like turn it around. And it took me like a good 6 months with this engineer before we actually, we were able to, he was able to listen to me without just being angry. And so because I know what the consequences are of not sort of honoring people's feedback and acting with integrity in the way that I bring up problems and issues, it's a price that I've paid. And so it's become really, a really important skill for me to develop just from those mistakes. I mean, they say you learn more from mistakes than you do from positive experiences. And boy, I mean, in this particular case, that was definitely the truth. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, it helps. I know for me personally, and I'm not specifically, I'm not a developer yet. I'm trying to make my way into this career, just for a little bit of background, but just I'm not an assertive person, and I do struggle quite a bit with just situations where there's conflict or whatever. And so it's just an area I recognize that I want to grow and continue to improve in.
Yeah, and I'm not always super comfortable with conflict either, and which is, I think, another part of the reason that my facilitation skills have become strong is because I don't want there to be arguments. So I try to like diffuse situations before they get there. But I mean, one other thing that has helped me a lot is just like building my confidence. I've definitely always felt like confident, like mentally, but not always felt confident socially. And, like I've had social anxiety in the past, and that, like, kind of working through that through, a lot of the tools available to me. I mean, I've been like an almost daily meditator for like 8 years, and I've been in and out of counseling as it's made sense for me to kind of work on issues that have come up, because I think the more authentic and present I can be, the more confident I am. And I'm definitely a lot. And, I think some of it is honestly, like, from what I've heard people have said, as you get older, like we've all, like people who are in my age group, like we all are care less about what other people think about us. And, so I think that's helped some too, but I have also, focused a lot on trying to do things that build confidence. And, but yeah, I mean, I think it is a challenge. And one of the areas I do struggle with is making sure that I'm doing a good job of getting input from people who maybe aren't as outgoing as some of the other people that I work with. And that's something that I have to constantly be reminded of. And, I was just reading recently, and I can't remember what the resource was, somewhere, talking about how to really, it was a company that's all remote. And they were talking in their article about like how they hire a lot of people on the spectrum. I wish I could remember which company it was. And like how they've changed their communication and focused on creating an environment that encourages participation by people in ways that are comfortable for everyone. You know, like providing agendas beforehand, allowing people to write down feedback, you know, and provide it in sort of, it might have been GitLab, in, you know, provide, you know, feedback in non sort of in a meeting kind of ways. It just like, it was just, I don't know, just keeping up and reading things like that help me be aware of other ways of communicating. You know, and even a lot of the stuff that Kroger is doing with diversity and inclusion. You know, this extends not just to, you know, racial divides, but to different ways of working, and just being aware that we all are different, and we all brings different strengths and, you know, different weaknesses to the table, and how can we leverage those to all grow and, you know, come up with a better working environment, and, you know, which ends up with a better product and a more successful company.
I have a related question, maybe for the group. Do you think that, like, with the move to a lot of people working remotely and like a greater reliance on like Slack and Teams and things like that, having those voices that might not have been so loud verbally in meetings, or, you know, like in the office, do you think that's helping like bring more viewpoints and bring a more diverse conversation across, you know, not just necessarily Kroger or Postman, but across all companies?
Okay, I just have to say puppy, because so this is what happens in meetings, and Izzy will confirm. We have one of our coworkers who has like a real puppy, and he gets on and we're like, puppy! So anyway, too much the annoyance of anyone else. But yeah, so I have thoughts on that, but I want to make sure other people have a chance to say things.
I also have thoughts on that, but I'm also willing to wait for other people to say things too.
That's kind of meta.
Okay, if nobody's going to say something, maybe I'll just sort of get it started. So yes, I think that it has helped. You know, I think part of the thing that's helped is that we do have, you know, most of our meeting tools have a chat on the side. So people who aren't as comfortable speaking up have, you know, an option on the side to provide feedback. I think it helps in that way, but I think it can also be the whole, like, having to speak up in an online meeting almost feels harder sometimes than if you're in person. So like, I think that there are some pros and cons to it. You know, I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time too, because sometimes we have meetings and nobody's got their camera on, and I really wish they did. And so I don't know how they're reacting, and I don't have that feedback. And, you know, having experienced social anxiety in the past, like being able to have that feedback loop is important. So.
Yeah, I second a lot of what Jessica says. I think that like virtual meetings super help, like the fact that there's a chat client, so I don't have to interrupt someone if I want a thought that needs to get heard or I want heard along with the conversation. Like, and I don't have to like 10 minutes later be like, oh wait, we gotta go back. I finally have room to talk and I want to go back to this other topic. But like it does kind of hurt in senses too, right? For people who really do struggle to speak up and people who aren't comfortable using chat and aren't necessarily comfortable getting their voices heard, like I can see situations where they tend to get lost because yes, they're in all of these meetings and they're participating and they're still like writing the code and listening in and super engaged, but because they're not talking, people forget that they're there. So I can totally see where voices are lost too.
You mentioned the idea of having chat and video at the same time, and I find that brings on another difference in how people can think, which is multitasking versus being single-minded on one media source. If I could kind of usher this into a question that I was going to ask for you, Jessica, and this can be for everyone else. Recently, I've had I'm trying to find new patterns of handling the multiple different technologies that you have to use throughout the day. For instance, my fiance I said, hey, I got to go write this email really quick. She said, oh, well, that's going to be an hour. And I thought, oh, that was going to be 15 minutes. And she's like, well, no, you write it, then you proofread it, then you do this and that. And I'm finding that, okay, doing emails will take up this much of my time. And then, educating myself on something, focusing on that, and then meetings, it's hard for me to multitask. I'm connecting this to the idea of video and chat at the same time can actually be very difficult for me. Do you feel, or anyone here feel like they have words of wisdom for how to multitask, or good rituals that they have that might have helped them as they navigate the day through different technologies and communications?
I would say, first of all, like, anyone who claims they can multitask is lying. You cannot multitask. It's not like, think of like parallel processing for computers, right? Like anytime you're trying to parallel process, you're not really parallel processing. Your computer is spending like, a second here, a second here, a second here, a second here. And it just looks like everyone is running at the same time, but it's really not. So anyone who says they can multitask is lying, and don't listen to them.
But I'm multi-core. I am multi-core.
Well, bring your dog back.
Yeah, that's two of us.
Yeah, Andy, I love that you call it's context switching. It's not so much multitasking. It's rapid context switching. And I know my daughter in particular is like, I can multitask. It's no problem. I do it all the time. I'm like, no, you can't. You can't. And she's like, no, I do it. I'm like, I'm not going to convince you because you're 15 and yeah, but.
Have you noticed that the people who claim to multitask really well are the ones you find yourself physically cleaning up after a lot? Oh, you left your keys. Oh, you didn't put air in the tires. Oh, right? Just saying.
I'm also saying this as I am trying to multitask, but it's fine.
I literally just jumped on and I'm like listening to another like conference call because I wanted to make sure I saw everyone this week. And I'm like, oh, wow, what a time to jump on.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah, it's good to see you. On multitasking, so I hate notifications and I turn off almost all notifications on everything. I would much rather pull information than be interrupted. And so like pretty much the only thing that makes noise these days is my phone when somebody calls me. Like I don't get alerts on my computer. I don't even have toast messages. I hate toast messages. They drive me nuts. And so sometimes that means I miss messages from people because I have a 2-monitor situation and I can only see, like we use Teams at Kroger and you'll get like a little icon, count, letting you know you have new messages or whatever. And I just won't see those right away, but it allows me to focus and get stuff done. But I think that the context switching has gotten way worse than it was when we were physically in an office. And so I've had to really try and up my game on that. So especially with everything that's going on in the world. I mean, it's like, I feel like life is a constant context switch right now.
Yeah, like one of my like philosophies is I will get to you when I get to you. Me getting to you at my slowest is still faster than me not getting to you. So I try not to let notifications pile up too high, but if I'm in the middle of a meeting and you want me to do work, I'm not going to respond to you until I'm out of that meeting. And sorry, not sorry, I'm not going to try to be rapidly context switching. And it's not a perfect system. It doesn't work all the time. I do get distracted from time to time, but I try as hard as I can to just not.
Yeah, and
I feel like, go ahead.
If they can interrupt you in a meeting and take your attention away and have it not cost, and have that not be a thing that costs the company, that's saying you didn't need to be in that meeting. And you shouldn't be going to meeting. You shouldn't be going to a meeting that you could be interrupted from.
So I think it's so for me, I do have more notifications turned on, but I think part of that might be I feel like most of my job right now is supporting other people. And so in that way, I want to be available to them when they need me. And, you know, so, and typically when I guess I do less of that deep work perhaps, or at least I do that in collaboration with others. You know, I don't know, that's kind of where I am on that. I mean, that might not be right. It's just when we talk about this, I realize I get notified a lot, but.
That's a great point. There are different roles require different levels of access. There are a few people in my life. First of all, I went to Tech Elevator. This is another thing to tie in here, Jessica. Boot camp is a lot of students, or at least multiple students have been a part of Tech Elevator here. We have these administrators that help guide us and mentor us. And the rapid response I get from them is astounding. I think I would never be able to communicate with 60 students at the same time as well as you can, and that is such a benefit. But I think it takes a certain job description and a certain mindset to make that happen.
I think I can maybe add something to that when you talk about like the certain mindset. And I don't know if this is true for everyone, but I found at least that I've gotten better with stuff like this over time. Well, I work fully remote now. I for those who don't know me, I guess there's a lot of faces here that weren't on the last time I was on. I used to work in an office in Cincinnati with Kroger, but I work fully remote now from Nashville, Tennessee. And I found at least the longer that I've been at this, the easier it is to kind of jump from thing to thing. I kind of take a middle ground approach with notifications where I have them all set to like notify me that I have an email or a text message or a Teams message, whatever, but not display the content, so that way I know that, oh, like I need to go check that when I have a minute. And that way I'm not trying to process whatever it is that gets sent to me at the same time as I'm working on something else. I also play like a lot of online video games with friends from high school who are now all over the country. And so I think that, you know, getting used to chatting with them and video calling with them while we try to cooperate in the game is also like good practice for sort of working that way.
That is a great point. There's the fact that you're getting the notification, and then it's whether or not you're taking time to process the content of the notification. I stopped showing my text message content for privacy purposes, but I do know now that you say that, the way I interact with my phone is very different than when I used to actually see the content of the message every time I looked at my phone without unlocking it. This is good tips. I'm going to be making changes to my computer settings after this and playing around with it. I appreciate it.
I know. So we were talking about, Jessica, you were talking about earlier about a full remote company, and GitLab came up, and I mentioned GitLab because I know that they really prided themselves on being full remote, and that they they're very focused on doing asynchronous processing. So like a lot of their stuff, they use GitLab to build GitLab, but they use GitLab issues as much as possible, where they make it available and then people have the opportunity to respond kind of at their leisure. And, you know, I don't have a specific response to that. They've actually got some really interesting articles they've written out there, but if that's something you're interested in, you might want to check that out.
Yeah, that is one of the other things that has been cool about the whole working from home situation is all the companies that have been doing it and the resources that they've made available for those of us who aren't used to doing it full time. I mean, I did, when I was working at Linden Lab, we worked at home for a month while they were doing renovations on our our office space. And that was a very different experience than working from home due to a pandemic, I just have to say, because you can actually go out and do things and see people and stuff. So I think, the adjustment to working from home was not just adjusting to working from home, it was adjusting to working from home in a pandemic. But yeah.
Anybody else have other questions? Anybody do anything fun this weekend? Looking forward to learning new stuff, exciting new stuff that you've learned. I always love to hear about that. I just realized I have a question. You all could ponder on that, but Jessica, what got you into technical writing? I don't recall you covering that yet, but what got you interested in that?
Well, so I was actually, my mom's a journalism teacher, and I worked on the high school newspaper with her. And so, I mean, I've been writing.
She was a teacher at your school or just?
Yeah, I actually had her as a teacher.
Wow.
So, and I refused to call her last name is Lane Hamilton. So I was like, that's too much. She's my mom. I'm just going to call her mom. Everybody knows she's my mom. Why would let's just not be silly about this. So of course I was the one who got into trouble in class anytime I did anything wrong, because she was super on all over that, that she was not giving me any special treatment. So I mean, I've been writing for a long time, and especially product and program management roles that I've had are a lot of communication skills as well. But no, it was actually just completely random. I worked for a consulting company, and they had placed me in a couple of UX roles, and they were looking for a new opportunity, because I'm a more sort of product management, I have part of the UX skill set, but I do not have the design side, and most UX roles really want the design side, and it's just I don't have that experience. So they found, Kroger was looking for some technical writers, and they were actually looking for one role, and my boss found two of us that he really liked. Me with a lot of experience, and another person that I now work with who this was his first role. And so he hired us both, and we were both contractors for a while, and then I converted to full-time just recently. But yeah, I mean, I really this role is not a typical technical writing role. I mean, that is one thing that I've found is really nice at Kroger is they're in a lot of ways it is a big company, but there's a lot of opportunity to jump in and do things that you want to work on or are interested in, and that just seem like it's needed at the time. It's not as strict as some places I've worked where, no, that's somebody else's role. You can't do that, or our team doesn't do that, or, whatever. I mean, I've been helping out with, conversations about onboarding or, things like that are how can we make some of the experiences at Kroger better for others. So, and since we are showing off dogs, I have to show off mine. This is Captain Kirk.
Hi, Kirk.
He's from the San Francisco Bay Area.
He looks like a bear.
He's-
Did anybody else think that?
He actually, yeah, that's a better shot. He's a little gray.
Nice.
He's about 10. But
Okay.
That might not
But
be
anyway.
legal. I don't think you're allowed to have a bear at home.
no.
I mean, I'm not going to
no.
rat you out, but just.
Right. Well, and I've heard that you're not allowed to have pigs in Cincinnati, hooved animals in Cincinnati, for those of you who live in the city.
Wow, that's messed
Because
up.
one of my neighbors in Northside, there's
Oh.
Stella.
Hello,
Hi, Stella.
Stella.
That is a good dog.
That's a good girl.
When did it go up?
And my cat is hiding somewhere, but she's not as interested in being on
Next week we can have a
television.
dog Zoom. I
That'd
mean,
be
Michael's
fun.
got a conflict, but we'll
Yeah,
just
I'm
have a
down for
dog
that.
Zoom.
It's totally
Oh
fine.
yeah, or a pet Zoom.
Yeah,
I did
pet
try
Zoom.
to have a meeting at one point when somebody went out of town that was bring your pet to the meeting, and it completely failed except for Brad. Brad brought his cat. He
I was out of
participated.
office that day. All right, cut me some slack.
So anyway, yeah.
She wants dinner 2 hours early. It's not
Oh.
happening.
Always,
Yeah.
right?
It's like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the time change doesn't help.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tried to explain it to her.
Yeah.
I've been trying to explain the time change to Stella for the past 3 days. And she does not.
Oh, do we have another puppy? Hi.
Oh, nice.
Yay.
She's an old girl.
I can see the white.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is Molly. She will be 15 next month.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a grown-up dog.
Yeah. Yeah, we lost her brother about a year ago.
Aw.
Oh.
Yeah. Kind of a fun story with her. My sister-in-law was going to a pound. She was looking for a dog a bunch of years ago. Goes into the pound, looks around, or shelter, or whatever, doesn't find a dog. On her way out, and there's a family coming in with a dog they're gonna turn over to the shelter. And she just kind of starts a conversation with them, and she likes the dog, and they're like, well, we're gonna turn her over, and she's like, well, I'll take her. So my sister-in-law takes this dog, and then like a week later takes the dog to the vet, get her checked out and so forth. The vet's like, yeah, well, guess what? She's pregnant. So she had 5 puppies, and it was right about the time where my daughter had been pestering me for years. Dad, I want a dog. Dad, I want a dog. Dad, I want a dog. And okay, we'd never had dogs. We've had cats for decades, but never had dogs. So I agreed. Okay, you can have one of the puppies from this litter. It was really cool. I wasn't there when the puppies were born, but all my kids were there. My wife went over to her sister's house, and the kids were there while the puppies were born, the whole 9 yards. But then the day it came for mom and daughter to go pick out the puppy or bring the puppy home, and mom decided that puppy needed a friend. So came home with 2 dogs. So we got two dogs out of that litter.
Got more than you bargained for.
Yeah. So we had brother and sister, and like I said, Moose went about a year ago. But she's hanging in there.
My other dog, Byron.
Oh, hello, Byron.
Hi, Byron.
All he does is sleep. So you have to look at him. He won't come to you.
So you remind me, one of the things that Jessica was talking about, and that reminded me of something that Izzy talks about, is confidence. And I'm very looking forward to hearing Izzy talk a little more about confidence next week. You can give a little teaser right now if you'd like, but we'll have to bring it up.
Way to put me on the spot, Michael. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I do that.
He's kind of a jerk that way.
I just like to fake the confidence of an upper middle class white man and see where it takes me. That's my main strategy right now.
So your talk is on YouTube, right?
You have that one as private on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My dogs are now fighting in the background as well.
This is maybe, by the way. She is purring quite aggressively,
Excellent.
actually.
Oh.
We had cats for probably, I mean, I've had a cat or cats for well over 30 years, up until about a year ago. Just down to one dog. That's it. One dog.
We've also have chickens, but they're outside, and I'm not bringing them inside. And Michael also has
Aw.
several chickens. He's got more than
Several.
I used to have chickens. I mean, when I was like 14, I was a weird kid in middle school.
Weren't we all?
Yeah.
I mean, did anybody actually enjoy middle school?
No.
Nobody's going to
Like-
admit it now.
But if you own chickens, is it imply that you're getting fresh eggs, or is it a certain breed?
I think as long as you have hens, you'll get eggs, right, Michael? I don't really know
Correct.
all that much about this. This is my husband's hobby. I just name them and eat the eggs. So our chickens are named breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, wow.
My mom grew up on a small farm where they raised animals for meat. So like I grew up hearing stories of like, oh, well, we're having our pet chicken for, dinner tonight. Because, Uncle Tom threw a brick at it and killed it. And my husband has them as pets. And I'm just sitting here kind of like, no, they're farm animals, not pets. We should eat them. But they're not large enough to eat, so it wouldn't work out so well.
Not supposed
Yeah,
to,
raising
not
raising for meat versus raising for eggs is a very different production.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're not
We
supposed,
have-
you're not supposed to name them if you're going to eat them, right?
No, absolutely not. Raising for eggs, naming is typically okay, except often if you get straight run chickens, then you kind of have your odds are good that you're going to get half roosters, in which case you're probably going to have to dispatch half of them. So
Yeah. And
That's-
you usually dispatch them very quickly.
yeah.
Or
Once
you
you
raise
discover
them,
they're roosters.
yeah, or you raise them to like 6 or 8 weeks or so. It's like the chickens you eat are about 8 weeks old.
They're super young.
Yeah,
like, you
it's
know.
kind of gross. You're eating chicken children.
Yeah. But when my mom was little, so the first time that they raised a cow for a butcher, they named the cow. And my mom comes in for dinner that night and she sits down at the table and she's like, oh, what's for dinner? And my grandpa thought it would be hilarious to be like, oh, we're having Bessie for dinner or whatever the cow's name was. And my mom just immediately starts bawling, like, and my grandma was just like, well, you're not going to eat all dinner or like all winter if you're not going to eat this. So get over it.
Yeah, my dad had a story like that with a chicken. Yeah, it's come home for dinner. What's for dinner? Oh, henny pennies for dinner.
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. I've been vegetarian for a few years. It doesn't have to have a name. I don't care. Taylor, the recruiter who was a special guest last week or the week before, right? He actually did a thing on LinkedIn today specifically about onboarding and how much value good onboarding adds. One of the people in that conversation said, actually there are companies that could have a chief onboarding officer. That could be a thing. You could have like
So-
somebody who does nothing but onboard people.
We have a tech elevator grad at Kroger who has been very impressive. We've had several of them, and all of them are great. This one in particular is Jill Croatia, and she cared deeply about onboarding and the problems that she had and the problems that she saw others have. And she actually started an onboarding guild to solve some of those problems at
Love
Kroger.
it.
So that's been pretty awesome. Very impressed with the work.
A lot
that
of companies
she's
suck
done.
at that.
Jessica contributing to that quite a bit, I think, right, Jessica?
Yeah, and Izzy has been
Easy,
in it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so, Connor, maybe there's an opportunity for you there because one of the
Exactly.
things that we've done, even at Kroger, I converted from a contractor to a full-time employee, which is way harder than it really needs to be. And so like I wrote up some documentation and just tried to fix things. which I think, and like that also makes you look really good to like new employers too. Like, hey, this was hard, so I did this to help.
Right. And like, I think they have a normal, very like well thought out process outside of COVID, right? And like any kind of the errors and stuff that's kind of going on is just like we're dealing with the pandemic. But I think I'm just realizing a lot of companies expected this to be over fairly soon. And now are realizing that it's like the continuation of what's going on. And then they haven't maybe adjusted for long-term COVID plans, right? So yeah, I mean, great idea though, definitely.
At 8 months in, if you're not going to have adjusted at this point,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. Sorry.
My thoughts exactly on day one.
Hey, Michael, just going back to what you were saying about the person the tech elevator grad who's taken up this cause.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say? It was a woman?
Yeah, Jill Caracia.
Jill. So Jill's not in an HR role, or I assume. I mean, so like, tell me a little. Do you know anything about like how she did this, or because that to me strikes me as one of those things where I would typically be like, well, this
that's not my job.
This whole thing sucks, but I'm not an HR, so I don't believe I have any power to do anything about that, right? That's just
well, so. I feel very strongly about empowering myself to fix things as I see them broken. And I hope that others feel similarly. I don't know if that's specifically a Kroger thing or if it's just personal. Izzy, you're giving me a look and I'm not sure how to interpret it.
It's kind of more for David. I'm wondering why you were asking about the gender of the tech elevator grad.
Only just because I wasn't sure I heard the name correctly, and I just wanted to verify.
Because this is kind of like one of those things where like anyone can do this, right? It doesn't have to be like the fact that Jill is a woman has nothing to do with the fact that she's doing this.
No, you're right. That's a great call out. I just didn't want to. I wasn't sure I heard the name correctly.
Okay.
So. I could just say that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I know exactly where you're coming from.
I'm sorry, I forgot where I was. Oh, but one of my friends, Cassandra, has this great talk called Get Out of Your Lane. And it's essentially about like, well, that's not my problem. Well, maybe I can make it my problem. And that's a way for me to show additional value to the company. And, sometimes that can be really fun. There's so many opportunities to doing things that aren't specifically in your job description, as long as you're at a company that embraces that. And I know that there are a lot of companies that are really like, nope, you write code. You sit there and you write code. And been very lucky to work at companies that are pretty flexible. I find Kroger to be incredibly flexible. So, you talk about HR, for example, and in the past, I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, we've been through lots of different stuff at Kroger, ups and downs, and you name it. And I was concerned about my organization, and I wanted to make sure. So there were certain parts of Kroger where we'd seen some significant losses of great employees. And I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to the employees specifically that I was working with across the company, but starting specifically with the employees that I was working with. And so I actually did a team temperature survey, I called it. And essentially, how do you feel about how things are going? What is your likelihood of recommending Kroger CX Web to others who might be looking for a job? What do you love about working at Kroger? What do you hate about it? What is your greatest pain points? Where can we most improve? And the output of that was really interesting. One of the things that we got out of that was people were really looking for more mentorship. And so we ran a subsequent mentorship survey where we execute on that and said, hey, what are you looking for as far as that goes? What does that mean to you? How can we execute on that to support you in this? And so we've taken both of those to management. They've been very receptive, and we're starting to put into place action items to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm actually coming up on doing the second iteration. I'm planning on doing this quarterly to do another iteration of that team temperature survey to see how we're tracking, if things have improved, if they've gotten worse, because that's how we can tell if we're actually doing the right things, if over time those measures are getting better. So I guess that was just an example of how I kind of felt like I got out of my lane, and how I feel like that has greatly benefited the company as a result.
A lot of companies
Yeah.
really like their lanes. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I find that but I guess on the other hand, even the companies that like their lanes, I find that sometimes the best way to advance is like to get out of your lane in just the right way and sell it right, because then you can, it's a really powerful way to kind of prove your value.
Right, but like, so just I'm kind of like relating this back to like my situation, right? It's just to try to connect, like how soon do you want to do that coming into a company, right? Because you want to like, fill it out, learn the culture, learn your position, but at the same time you want to contribute in a meaningful way where you're growing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But one of the things I would say is thanks. Is one of the very least you can do is document the problems that you encounter and say, hey, these are some things that didn't go very smooth and, kind of cost me a lot of time. And I think that if we improve these, then for others, they would have a better experience. They would save the company money as a result, and things would be better. And so I think that's just a great place to start. You start with small things and then you build. It's all about being iterative. Everybody wants the big bang, right? They want like, boom, I did this awesome thing. And sometimes I keep saying this in everything all the time. You got to play the long game. It's whether that's with the relationships, with networking, with work, with career, with family. The long game is where it's at. And as you put in those investments over time, they will pay off long term.
Yeah, and another thing that I think can be really helpful is like just talking to your manager about what you'd like to do, and like, hey, I'm interested in this, I see an opportunity here, is there some leeway for me to spend a little bit of time on this? Because then they're not surprised, first of all, but you've also like said, hey, I'm thinking about how I can make things better. And so even if they say, no, that doesn't make sense, you've started to open a channel where you can provide feedback and have conversations about, potential future opportunities, and even say, hey, well, if this isn't a good fit, what are the other types of things that I can, help contribute to? Because that's one of the key things about Jill, the woman who's doing this, she worked with her manager to, make sure that it was supported, and, for small things, it's probably not that important, but, when you're making a really big investment in time, you definitely want that buy-in.
This is good stuff.
Thanks, Randy.
Oh yeah, I just soaked this in like a sponge. I have two things to say unrelated to this, if that's all right. One is like, I got a job I'm really excited about, so I just want to let the group
Randy,
know.
yes.
I'm really excited about it. It's an interesting job. It's working with a startup here in Cincinnati. Startups aren't what I was shooting for as a junior developer, but it does look like it's a position where they're understanding of that, and they're going to really invest in I'm going to be learning on the job and kind of setting my own curriculum. So it should be cool. I might be asking questions in the coming weeks, but I just want to let you guys all know that your support has meant the world to me.
That's where is it? You mind just telling us what company it is?
I don't mind at all. They're called Hive. So this is a valet-oriented app. I actually was in the restaurant industry before this and worked with this company before. And I love the idea of this application. It is that you can go anywhere in the downtown area, hit the app button, and a valet person will come and get your car and park it for you. You can then roam around the city, end up at a completely different location and say, as long as you're within the boundaries of downtown, say, bring me my car, they'll bring it to wherever you are. I think it's a great modern take on valet services. The reason why I'm able to get the position, and this is hilarious, my position, I'm the Director of Information Technology, which is hilarious considering my knowledge. COVID obviously has taken a little bit of they kind of hit a standstill, and they wanted someone to come in and get to know the program, which is already written by a third party, get to know it, learn how to use it, kind of said, hey, you've got 4 to 5 months to just soak it in and learn about how to interact with this, and then start to just carve away at functionality and how it works while we have support coming from that third party. So it's going to be a challenge, but it is something that I can sink my teeth into, and so I'm pretty excited about it. I hope that's a good
wonderful
description.
What technology?
It's so it'll be Java for Android. It'll be Swift, which I was asking last time. So it's not Kotlin. It will be Java, but Swift for iOS, and then it uses Google Cloud. So I've been doing a lot of Google Cloud tutorials with Firebase, and then the back end is the developer console is oh my goodness, I can't think, Angular. So that'll be another one I'll be learning. It was funny. I was really sinking my teeth into React, and then time to change gears again. But now I've got a little bit of Vue, JS, React, and Angular. So maybe I'll be a triple threat.
I think Angular is a little bit hard to learn, but it's really cool.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
The scalability is what I've heard is one of the great things about it, which seems like it would make sense for an application that is intended to grow quickly. Although I think that might be more infrastructure wise.
Dude, I'm stoked for you, man. This is awesome.
Thank you. I'm very excited. I'm going to be starting on Monday. Get to pick out my computer and go from there.
Awesome.
Jessica, I wanted to ask you a question, which is a little bit of a rookie question. And I see that you are API solutions engineer. And API is one of those, maybe if you guys already discussed this position earlier on, forgive me, I know I came late. The word or the acronym API is something that I learned when I was starting off. I thought it meant, oh, cool, web calls, RESTful API. And then I started listening to talks and found that the word API is thrown around for so many different concepts that it almost seems to be just a fill in the blanks for any kind of interface with anything. Sometimes it's almost interchangeable with the whole program itself. So I guess I was curious your take on how you would define what an API is, because most programmers end up coming down to an analogy rather than a literal definition. I was curious if you had a take on an analogy for how you would describe an API.
That's interesting. I actually haven't ever thought about an analogy for how I would describe it. I mean, when I talk about it with relatives who don't know technology, I'm like, it's an interface, and I don't often use interface, but it's a way that computers communicate with each other. So like this has a way that you can talk to it, and this has a way that you can talk to it, and they kind of work together that way. But like most people who aren't technical, they don't really like when you say it's how computers talk to each other, like that, they don't want to know anymore, right? So anyway, yeah, I don't think that probably gave you a whole lot, but
no, I know that's exactly, I think how you would explain it to someone who doesn't know is
Yeah.
great. I'm glad you said that. Actually, I think that's a better way of asking the question rather than saying give me an analogy. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Randy,
Yeah.
I think you're right that it's an incredibly overloaded term. I think that we can agree on that. But yeah, I think I've heard about like the programming, the library API or the REST API, or there's all different kinds of types of APIs. So,
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I mean, that's the concept that you're communicating is what you just said, and it is very general. Yeah, that's fine.
Right on. Thanks so much.
well, I'm gonna probably hop off here in a few minutes. And we're coming up on like 5:30, so
Oh
I have
my.
to say it's been a pleasure, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah. Thank you
Jessica,
all. It's
well
been
done.
very nice to meet you all and hear about your experiences and just get more connected with the tech community here. So
Thank you
good
so
luck
much, Jessica.
to those of
Mike?
you who are new and starting jobs.